Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Turbo Fire Garage. Today I'll be talking about, and we'll go out and take a look at, my late father's 1965 Impala SS. This was his pride and joy. He purchased it in 1983 from a co-worker at Boeing. It was purchased 3 years before he met my mother and 7 years before I was born. So there's a lot of history behind this car. It was never my dad's daily driver. It was always a weekend cruiser, whether it be down to Alki Beach or just taking a whole bunch of friends down to the local burger joint. When he bought the car in 1983, the motor was absolute toast. Every single time he stopped at a light, it would just billow black smoke and completely cover the intersection. The rings were just gone. And when he took the motor out originally, he took it down to the machine shop. They took one look at it and they says, nope, find another block. So he had to find another block. He kept the heads and all the accessories, so all of that stuff is original, but the block was too far gone. So instead, he got a 1968 327. When Dad went down to General Automotive Warehouse, he met his neighbor behind the parts counter. Unfortunately, since Dad had just started at Boeing and he just picked up the 65 Impala, there wasn't a whole bunch of funds left to rebuild this engine. So he went with just a standard rebuild kit, and he said, well, there's a problem with this. Unfortunately, we don't have these parts in stock and we cannot order them. So instead, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to order up some nice TRW pistons with a Melling high volume oil pump, and we'll get you some nice bearings. And we'll go ahead and sell that to you at the base price. So with that, Dad got a nice rebuild kit for it. He brought it back home, and him and his buddies went ahead and rebuilt that motor. Dad took Friday off, got everything set up for the weekend, and they rebuilt that motor in 2 days. They took it out on a Friday and they put it in on Sunday. With a fresh motor rebuild and the smoke completely gone now, him and his buddies went ahead and enjoyed that car, taking it up and down the coast, doing a couple of road trips with it, and just enjoying it. A few years later, 1986, he met my mom, and they went ahead and enjoyed that car as well. And then in 1990, I was born. After I got home from the hospital, they put me in the driver's seat of that car. And that's when I say my love of classic cars started. We went for cruises, car shows, and out to dinner in that car for many years. We even took it over to Wenatchee a couple times for their car shows and had a lot of fun doing so. Then in 2013, we pulled the motor again because it was leaking a little bit. We replaced all the gaskets and repainted the motor and put it back in. After we got the motor back in, there really wasn't much to do on the car because it has always been so nice. So we just cruised it, enjoyed it, took it to more car shows, and had much more fun. And that's what we did right up until about a year before Dad passed. And I decided that, well, the one working speaker in the car just wasn't enough. So I went out and I found an original 1965 Impala AM, FM, stereo radio. And back in those days, to make it stereo, you had to have an under dash unit called a multiplex unit. So I found a full set and had it completely restored and installed it. Dad lived just long enough to cruise in that car with the new stereo a couple of times, and he did say that it sounded so much better. So with that, it brings us to what we have going on now. And we started a 1965 409 project. I found a 1965 409 that was manufactured January 5th of 1965. Dad's car was assembled the second week of January 1965. So it was a needle in a haystack, but I found it. And that motor is still at the machine shop. It is being built. And unfortunately, even though he's not going to be here to assemble the motor and install it, he'll definitely be here in spirit. So with that, I will go ahead and show you the car now. Alrighty, and here it is, Dad's 1965 Impala SS that he purchased 40 years ago. This car has been very, very well maintained, and even though it is not perfect, it does present very, very nicely. I'll show you under the hood here. When Dad rebuilt this, he rebuilt it to the optional 300 horse 327. It does have some aftermarket goodies on there. It has a larger brake booster. It does have four-wheel drum brakes, and the larger brake booster makes it a little bit easier to stop. Have the original washer fluid that this car originally came with. The interior of this car is absolutely immaculate. There is not one single tear in these seats. Nothing in the headliner. And aside from the armrests here, both sides, and the carpet, everything in here is factory original. None of the vinyl has ever been replaced, and it still shows exceptionally nicely. Just a testament of how well they built things back in the day. The 2-speed Power Glide has been replaced with a Turbo-Hydromatic 350. Here is the AM/FM multiplex radio. And as one goodie here, I have a 8-track player also integrated into the factory harness here, so that when you put a tape in, it shuts the radio off and plays the 8-track. And the 8-track in here is, of course, the Beach Boys. Also, features a working clock. Very nice interior. There have been a couple liberties. The deluxe seat belts were put in by Dad, and also the rear package tray speakers. The stereo in this vehicle has 2 speakers up front, 2 in the package tray, and 1 in the middle. Absolute cherry interior. Door is shut nicely. And this right here is the original factory vinyl top. This vinyl top is original to the car. It has not been off and replaced. In the trunk here, we have a parking meter. It's part of a display used at car shows. One of my dad's buddies has a Azure Aqua 1964 Impala SS that they show together. Original polyglass spare tire. I don't think the Impalas came with carpeted trunks, but if you know, let me know in the comments. All in all, it is an extremely nice 1965 Impala SS. Dad's car of 40 years. One last thing of note is the paint. While it is lacquer paint, it is not original. The car was repainted in either the late 60s or the early 70s after an accident. So thank you very much for joining me, and look forward to the next video where we're going to take it out for a cruise. So until then, happy cruising.